Hello, I'm John Barboza from Life Enriching Hypnosis, and you are watching Hypnotism 101. Thanks for tuning in. Our brain is an extremely powerful organism, and our minds are constantly actively thinking. Sometimes intrusive, unwanted words or images suddenly pop up out of nowhere. On one side of the spectrum, they could be disturbingly violent, graphic, immoral, or traumatic. While on the other side of the spectrum, they could be slightly fearful or self-doubting thoughts. We've all experienced them to some degree at one point or another, whether it was sexual in nature or constantly worrying. I remember several times in the past while driving, my mind would wander. And for a split second, the thought to swerve to the right to avoid a collision would pop up out of nowhere, even though everyone was safely driving. Those moments can be extremely scary because it's as though the mind actually believed that I was in danger when in fact I wasn't. But if I had swerved, I could have easily hit another vehicle or drove off of the highway. A few days ago while driving to Connecticut, I actually experienced that exact thought, which caused me to remember about how in the past that would happen to me. Now, most times, thoughts like that appear and are easily brushed away and forgotten, and you continue doing whatever it is you're doing. But for some people, they tend to latch on to those thoughts, and they get stuck in this sort of loop where they begin to replay those images or fears, doubts, or worries over and over again. I remember when I was young and I was going to job interviews, there were a couple of times when I began to worry about whether the person would like me or not. And after stressing myself out before the interview, which happened to be very successful, and I landed the job, I realized that there was no need for me to put myself into that state of mind. And from that moment on, I never did that to myself again. And so, think about a moment when you had some type of self-doubt or worry or concern, and how you allowed it to snowball and get out of control. Remember that feeling? Thinking about it now is probably actually causing you to relive that moment. And if that's what's happening now, notice the feelings and where they are in your body. It's almost as though you've activated the replay button. If you could instantly bring that feeling and those thoughts to the surface that easily, imagine doing the same thing with something that maybe you've been working on or trying to figure out. So take a moment to think about a problem you would like to solve. As you're thinking of that problem, this reminds me of a story. It was a documentary of the first person in space, Yuri Gagarin. Think about it. He was the first person in space. He's strapped on to the top of a rocket, really untested, a bomb, a controlled explosion with a huge amount of power to get you into space. It needs to be controlled or goes bad. So he's a scientist, military, and he realizes the odds are 50-50. He could die, but he's doing it. He had that type of courage. How many people have that courage? When the ship goes into the stratosphere, he was the first person to leave the Earth and see the Earth for what it is. Usually the one thing all astronauts have in common is that they realize the smallness of the Earth and how fragile it is, and that we're fighting over nothing. Petty, insignificant fighting over a line in the desert. He's the first person in space, the first to experience weightlessness, floating in space, and its silence. And what happens when it's quiet? Do you start thinking? This is why people put on music, so they don't have to listen to the inner dialogue. He saw his life in a different perspective. No one on Earth can see space. You look down at Earth and your perspective begins to shift, and you question how big is your problem. It's just a line in the sand that means nothing. You see things differently. He could think the thoughts he needs to think and enter a different person. You're the only you. You're the only one. Even if you're a twin, as you grow and you have different life experiences, you have a different life because you alter your DNA with your thoughts. So if you could be like that cosmonaut and go into space and see yourself differently, you begin to realize that problem. But right now, think about that problem, but imagine seeing it from space. What can you do differently that you can do down there that would make the change different from up here? Only you know. But you might be surprised and delighted that later today, as you re-enter yourself, because you will be going in and out of hypnosis as you do all the time, sometime it's just going to click and you're going to begin to notice. And I'm not sure if it will happen by the end of this workday or today, but pretty soon, what's going to happen is that problem is going to go to that part of your mind that used to be true, but now it's not. Think about something that used to be true, but now it's not. I used to live in Rhode Island, but now I live in Massachusetts. The fact is, I used to live in Rhode Island, and that's neutral. It's back here. It's no longer true for me. It used to be true. Now it's not. Now I live in Massachusetts. So if you think about your problem, if you put it back there, it used to be true, but now it's not. The only option is to be the person you need to be to overcome that problem. So if you flip it back there, you'll be delighted how easy change will be. You don't have to go into space to experience space. We have it here. If you look at the magical quality of life, it's phenomenal. So just allow what I said or what you've heard to sink in, and you'll notice that that feeling or little thing that's back there someplace isn't even worth looking for, because there are much more important and wonderful, satisfying things that are way worth paying attention to. I'm John Barboza from Life Enriching Hypnosis, and this is Hypnotism 101.